Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite magazines and arguably the best of the Famous Monsters knockoff. That was Fantastic Monsters of the Films. This is I had this bound volume put together by Hooch and Bindery. This collects all 7 issues. I thought we'd take a quick look through the magazine. Fantastic Monsters was published in, I believe, 63 or 64, which is right in near the beginning, or I guess towards the first half of the big monster boom. This magazine is in marked contrast to the others of the area because of its use of color. This was a really classy publication all the way around. Paul Blaisdell, a special effects man from some films like Not of This Earth and it challenged the Monster that Challenged the World. A lot of the better AIP science fiction horror movies of the 50s. Was a contributing editor here. As you can see his name, Paul Blaisdell. Another name you might be familiar with, Bob Burns, who is a film collector and film historian. He's written a couple of books, very well known in fandom circles. And then Jim Harmon is the associate editor here. He would later be the editor of Marvel's Monsters of the Movies in the 70s. So anyway, they put this magazine together in the mid 60s. It's a really classy, really colorful magazine, and it had fiction. And again, in contrast to the other monster horror magazines that had text fiction of the time, this actually had pretty good fiction. This is a story by Robert Bloch, and it's a good story. The most like there's some fiction in like Monsters of the Movies and some of the magazines that's pretty forgettable, you know. But let's just take a quick flip through and you can see all the photos. There's 7 issues, and apparently Warren and Ackerman were. This was like a real threat to Famous Monsters' hegemony of the time. And unfortunately, after issue 7 of Fantastic Monsters of the Films was produced, there was a rather suspicious fire at the printing plant. Here you can see another thing they did in Fantastic Monsters. He had fold-out posters. And here's one of Paul Blaisdell's more famous creations, the She Creature. That monster was in the She Creature. This monster's also in The Ghost of Rex Apollo. So Blaisdell would contribute some behind-the-scenes stuff about how to make your own monsters and special effects secrets. Now, the Mad Mummy. Here's Bob Burns. This is one of his personas, the Mad Mummy. Burns would host, I think, monster movies in Texas, I believe, at this time when he was in the Air Force. And one of the characters he would portray would be the Mad Mummy. He was also in the gorilla suit in the Ghostbusters show, the one that predated the movie, with Larry Storch and Forrest Whitaker. He was Kogar the gorilla. So anyway, as I was saying, there was a rather suspicious fire at the printing plant that published Fantastic Monsters of the Films after their 7th issue, and that put it into Fantastic Monsters of the Films, unfortunately. So, but of the era, it, along with Castle of Frankenstein, is probably the 2 best film horror magazines of the time. Glenn Strange, Bob Burns was a very close friend of Glenn Strange, who played the monster in the latter Universal horror movies. House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. That's something that there was a rift with between Glenn Strange and Forrest Ackerman. Uh, it's mentioned in one of the early issues of Famous. I read an interview with Ackerman where apparently there's some thought that there was an accusation that maybe Ackerman had stolen a prop or something from Glenn Strange, which may or may not have been true. Probably wasn't true. But it caused some acrimony between him and Glenn Strange. So as a result, Strange, who was alive during this time, uh, was not never really interviewed, I don't believe, in Famous Monsters, where you see in Fantastic Monsters the films he is quite a bit in some of the other magazines of the time. Um, Modern Monsters, I believe. Some of the other 60s monster magazines would have articles with Glenn Strange. But Famous Monsters never, to my memory, never really featured, never really had interviews with him or anything. With a Metaluna Mutant is the monster of the month. It's the monster from It, the Terror from Outer Space, I think, Beyond Space. I remember he's going. The movie that Alien was based on. See here some of these. How to make a monster. The paper here too is not your, the cheap newsprint that most magazines of the time was printed on. It's more of a slicker, more like a Life or Time type paper. Flash Gordon was a big influence on me, the Buster Crab Flash Gordon. I used to watch Flash Gordon before school in the morning. My favorite movie of all time is probably the 1980 Sam Jones Flash Gordon. I love that movie. Flash Gordon was really the benchmark for science fiction until Star Wars came along and ruined everything. That's another discussion. Let's see the monster of the month. This issue is the creature for the Black Lagoon, McGill Man. This is Beulah, the monster from The Monster That Challenged the World. And one of Blaisdell's more famous creations. There she is.